Let's read my followers' stories.
I lived with my father, Omar. Our home was small and humble, built by the hands of our ancestors who had lived and worked on this land for generations. The walls were lined with memories, old photographs, dried herbs hanging in bunches, and the faint scent of earth and wood that permeated every corner. Life here was simple, but it was filled with the richness of family, tradition, and the hard work that had sustained us through the years. My father was a man of deep conviction and unwavering determination. He was known throughout the village for his kindness, but also for his relentless pursuit of a dream that seemed more distant with each passing year. He wanted to bring our land back to its former glory, to cultivate a harvest so bountiful that it would be remembered for generations to come. It was a dream that had been passed down from his father, my grandfather, and perhaps from the generations before him. My earliest memories are of mornings spent in the fields with my father. I would wake up to the sound of birds chirping outside my window and the smell of fresh dew on the grass. My father would already be up, preparing for the day's work. He had a ritual that he followed without fail. After a quick breakfast of bread, cheese, and strong tea, he would head out to the fields, carrying with him a sense of purpose that I didn't fully understand at the time. As a child, I would follow him around, trying to imitate his every move. He taught me how to hold a hoe, how to plant seeds in neat, even rows, and how to water the crops just enough, not too much, not too little. The land is like a living thing, Ahmed, he would say, his voice gentle but firm. Treat it with respect, and it will reward you. But neglect it, and it will wither away. The land we worked was vast, stretching out as far as the eye could see, but it had grown tired over the years. The soil was no longer as fertile as it once was, and the crops that did grow were often weak and sparse. Each year, we would plant, water, and tend to the fields with care, but the harvest would barely be enough to feed our family and pay for the essentials we needed to get through the year. Despite this, my father never gave up. He would often sit by the fireplace in the evenings, poring over old farming books and journals, searching for new techniques or old wisdom that might help us revive the land. There's always something more to learn, Ahmed, he would tell me, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames. Farming isn't just about hard work. It's about understanding the land, knowing when to push and when to let it rest. As I grew older, I began to take on more responsibilities. I helped my father in the fields every day, learning not just the physical labor of farming, but also the patience and perseverance that came with it. I learned to read the signs of the weather, to predict when rain might come or when a dry spell was on its way. I learned to recognize the different pests that could destroy a crop and the ways to combat them. And most importantly, I learned to carry the weight of our family's hopes and dreams on my shoulders, just as my father had done for so many years. One year, when I was about 15, we faced a particularly harsh summer. The rains that usually came in late spring had not arrived, and the ground was cracked and dry. Our crops were struggling to survive, and no matter how much we watered them, it seemed like it would never be enough. I could see the strain on my father's face, deep lines of worry etched into his brow, and a quiet desperation in his eyes that he tried to hide from me. But even then, he refused to give up. He spent long hours under the scorching sun, tending to the plants, torturing them as if they were his own children. I worked alongside him, trying to stay hopeful, but the situation seemed increasingly bleak. Each day, the sun beat down harder, and each day, our crops grew weaker. One evening, as we sat together on the porch after a particularly exhausting day, my father turned to me and said, Ahmed, I think it's time we try something different. His voice was steady, but I could hear the weariness in it. The old ways aren't working anymore. We need to adapt, to find new ways to bring the land back to life. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. My father contacted other farmers in the village, discussing new farming techniques and gathering advice. He also traveled to a nearby town, where he met with agricultural experts and learned about the latest advancements in farming. When he returned, he was armed with new knowledge and a renewed sense of purpose. We began by testing the soil, something we had never done before. With the help of some new equipment my father had acquired, we discovered that the soil had become too acidic over the years, which was one of the reasons why our crops had been failing. We needed to balance the soil, to restore its natural pH levels. My father explained to me how this was like healing a wound. The land needed time and care to recover. Together, we prepared a mixture of natural fertilizers, compost, and lime to neutralize the acidity. It was a painstaking process, but we knew it was necessary. Every morning, We would spread the mixture across the fields, carefully working it into the soil. My father taught me how to monitor the progress, checking the soil's pH levels every few days. As the soil began to heal, we also experimented with different types of crops, ones that were more resilient to the harsh conditions. We planted drought-resistant varieties of wheat and barley, and also introduced some new crops like chickpeas and lentils, which were known to improve soil health. My father explained that crop rotation was important, as it helped maintain the balance of nutrients in the soil. It wasn't easy. There were days when it felt like we were fighting a losing battle, when the sun seemed too hot, the rains too sparse, and the soil too stubborn to change. But through it all, my father remained steadfast. His determination fueled my own, and we pressed on, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Months passed, and slowly but surely, we began to see the fruits of our labor. The soil, once dry and cracked, was now rich and dark. The crops, which had struggled to survive in previous years, were now growing strong and healthy. The fields, once barren and lifeless, were now a sea of green, swaying gently in the breeze. The transformation was remarkable. Our neighbors, who had watched our struggles over the years, were amazed at the change. They came to our farm, asking my father for advice and guidance. He shared everything he had learned, happy to help others in the village. He believed that the land belonged to everyone, and that if we worked together, we could all prosper. As the harvest season approached, there was a sense of anticipation in the air. My father and I walked through the fields every day, inspecting the crops, checking for any signs of disease or pests. The wheat was tall and golden, the barley thick and heavy with grain. The chickpeas and lentils had done wonders for the soil, and we knew that this would be the best harvest we had seen in years. Finally, the day of the harvest arrived. The entire village came to help, just as they had in the past when the harvest was plentiful. There was a sense of joy and camaraderie as we all worked together, cutting the wheat, threshing the barley, and gathering the chickpeas and lentils. The fields, once the source of worry and despair, were now a symbol of hope and renewal. That evening, as the sun set over the fields, casting a golden glow on the land, my father and I sat together on the porch. The village was buzzing with excitement, and we could hear the sound of laughter and celebration in the distance. My father turned to me, his face tired but content, and said, "Ahmed, we did it. We brought the land back to life." There were tears in his eyes, and I could feel my own eyes welling up as well. I knew how much this meant to him, how much it meant to both of us. It wasn't just about the harvest, though that was important. It was about the journey we had taken together, the lessons we had learned, and the bond that had grown stronger between us. That night, the village threw a grand celebration in our honor. There was music, dancing, and a feast that seemed to go on forever. My father was the guest of honor, and as he stood to speak, the entire village fell silent. He thanked everyone for their support and hard work, and then he turned to me. "This achievement isn't mine alone," he said, his voice full of pride. "It belongs to my son, Ahmed, who stood by me through every challenge, who worked alongside me, and who believed in this land as much as I did. This is our victory, and it belongs to all of us." The crowd erupted in applause, and I felt a swell of pride in my chest. It was a moment I would never forget, a moment that marked the culmination of years of hard work, determination, and hope. In the days that followed, life returned to its usual rhythm, but there was a new energy in the village. The success of our harvest had inspired others to take better care of their land, to try new methods, and to work together for the common good. My father and I continued to work the fields, but now we did so with a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. As the years passed, the land continued to thrive. Each harvest was better than the last, and our village prospered. My father became a respected elder, known not just for his farming skills, but for his wisdom and generosity. He was always willing to share his knowledge with others, and he took great pride in seeing our village grow stronger. For me, the lessons I learned during that difficult summer stayed with me for the rest of my life. I learned that perseverance in the face of adversity was the key to success, that the land required respect and care, and that the bond between a father and son could be as strong as the roots of the oldest tree. And so, as I look back on that journey, I realized that it was not just about the harvest, but about the legacy my father and I created together, a legacy that would be passed down to future generations. Along with the stories of the golden fields that had once again brought prosperity to our family and our village. And every time I walk through those fields, I feel my father's presence beside me, his spirit in every blade of grass, every ear of wheat, and every whisper of the wind. The land, once tired and worn, is now alive with the memory of his dedication, and I know that as long as I live, I will carry his dream forward, nurture in the land and the legacy we built together.
Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. If you want to share your story, write it down in the comments. Peace.